Lin Yang could wait no longer. If this plan succeeded, the entire imperial court would fall into Feng Zhon's hands. She silently retreated and quickly left the study. But the moment she stepped into the back courtyard, she immediately sensed that something was wrong. A cold voice echoed from the darkness, "Princess, you've come at the wrong time." Dozens of guards rushed out from all directions, surrounding her. Lin Yang smirked. "Feng Zhon, you are indeed cautious." The second prince stepped out of the shadows, his gaze sharp as a blade. "I've been suspicious for a long time, but I didn't expect you to walk into the trap yourself." He clapped his hands once, and immediately, a guard dragged a bound figure before Lin Yang. Her eyes widened. It was one of her loyal shadow guards. Feng Zhon sneered. "Your man has already confessed. You came here to find evidence to overthrow me. What a pity, tonight will be your last night." Lin Yang clenched her fists. She knew she was in a precarious situation, but she was not one to surrender easily. "Feng Zhon, you are too confident." As soon as she finished speaking, she swiftly drew a short sword from her sleeve, her eyes flashing with a cold light. The battle for survival had officially begun. The blade in Lin Yang's hand gleamed silver under the moonlight. Like lightning, she slashed the ropes binding her shadow guard, while simultaneously turning to strike down the nearest guard. Blood splattered. Feng Zhon raised an eyebrow, surprised that she dared to attack right in front of him. HMPH, stubborn to the very end. He waved his hand and ordered, "Kill her." Dozens of guards lunged at her at once. Lin Yang moved swiftly, her short sword flickering in and out of sight. Every strike was precise, targeting her enemy's weak spots. But no matter how skilled she was still just one person against an elite army. Just as a guard's sword was about to reach her, a sharp arrow shot from the distance, piercing his throat. Immediately after, a group of masked figures descended from the rooftops. Lin Yang's shadow guards had arrived. "Protect the princess." With their support, Lin Yang launched a counterattack. She moved like a swallow, using the terrain to close in on Feng Zhon. He hurriedly retreated, but it was too late. A cold blade pressed against his throat. "Feng Zhon, in this game of chess, you have lost." Lin Yang's voice was icy. Feng Zhon gritted his teeth, his eyes full of resentment. "Do you think capturing me will change anything? The officials in the court, the military defectors, they are all part of my plan." Lin Yang didn't reply. Instead, she struck his nape with the hilt of her sword. Feng Zhon collapsed unconscious. "Princess, we cannot stay here long. Reinforcements could arrive at any moment," a shadow guard reminded her. Lin Yang nodded. She turned to the loyal guard she had just freed. "Return to the palace immediately. Inform the Emperor and Fu Kenshin that we have captured Feng Zhon." "Yes, Your Highness." Under the moonlight, Lin Yang and her shadow guards swiftly departed from the second prince's residence, carrying the mastermind of the rebellion. But she knew, this was not the end. Feng Zhon was merely a pawn. There were greater forces behind him yet to reveal themselves. And the true battle had only just begun. Lin Yang and her shadow guards returned to the palace, bringing the tightly bound Feng Zhon with them. As they crossed the palace gates, the imperial guards rushed forward. Seeing the captured traitor, they exchanged shocked glances. "Inform His Majesty at once," Lin Yang commanded. Before long, news of Feng Zhon's capture spread throughout the palace. The emperor and the court officials gathered in the grand hall. Lin Yang and her shadow guards knelt before the emperor, while Feng Zhon was forced to kneel in disgrace before them all. The emperor gazed at his younger brother, his expression filled with both fury and sorrow. "Feng Zhon, what do you have to say for yourself?" Feng Zhon lifted his head slightly, showing no fear. He smirked. "Explain myself. I have no need to. Since childhood, you never valued me. Why should I be loyal to someone who never trusted me?" A heavy silence fell over the court. Murmurs arose among the officials, and those who had secretly supported Feng Zhon began to tremble in fear. Lin Yang stepped forward, her tone sharp. Spare us the excuses. You conspired to rebel, colluded with Nanjiang, and even sought to kill the emperor. You have no right to speak of loyalty. Feng Zhon laughed bitterly and looked straight at the emperor. Even if I die, there will be others to take my place. Brother, do you think capturing me ends it all? The emperor clenched his fists. At that moment, an official suddenly lunged forward, pulling a hidden dagger from his sleeve, aiming straight for the emperor's heart. In an instant, Fu Kenshin intercepted the attack. With a swift stroke of his sword, he cut the traitor down. But this was only the beginning. The officials loyal to Feng Zhon immediately drew their weapons, and chaos erupted in the Grand Hall. Lin Yang reacted swiftly, shielding the emperor alongside Fu Kenshin. The imperial guards poured in from outside, turning the hall into a blood-stained battlefield. Amidst the chaos, Feng Zhon seized the opportunity to escape. Lin Yang immediately gave chase. This time, you won't get away, Feng Zhon. She moved like the wind through the palace corridors, her gaze locked onto Feng Zhon's fleeing figure. Though he was skilled in martial arts, he was no match for her under these circumstances. Feng Zhon ran, glancing back with a face twisted in hatred and desperation. He knew that if Lin Yang caught him, his fate would be sealed. He dashed into a hidden tunnel within the palace, one he had secretly built in case of defeat. But he hadn't expected Lin Yang to predict his escape route. Just as he reached the secret door, a cold blade pressed against his throat. Stop, Lin Yang commanded, her voice laced with killing intent. Feng Zhon froze, his expression dark. Gritting his teeth, he snarled, "Do you think killing me will end this? You don't understand. I was never alone." Just then, assassins emerged from the shadows, all targeting Lin Yang. She smirked. She had anticipated this. Her shadow guards immediately appeared, and another fierce battle erupted within the palace walls. Lin Yang faced Feng Zhon one-on-one. His sword skills were formidable, but he was no match for her. Within a few moves, she forced him into a corner. He panted heavily, his eyes filled with hatred and despair. "Today, you have no escape." Lin Yang's voice was cold, her sword aimed at his heart. Feng Zhon let out a mad laugh and shouted, "If I die, I will take this empire down with me." With that, he suddenly plunged his own sword into his abdomen. Lin Yang was momentarily stunned, but quickly stepped back, avoiding the pool of blood spreading across the floor. Feng Zhon collapsed, his eyes still burning with resentment. The rebellion was crushed. The emperor ordered a thorough investigation to root out any remaining traitors. Lin Yang stood atop the palace walls, gazing into the distance. She knew that though this battle was over, the palace's struggles and schemes were far from finished. Fu Kenshin approached. "You did well." Lin Yang sighed. "But I know there are still enemies lurking in the shadows." Fu Kenshin smirked. "Then we will keep fighting until this palace knows true peace." Lin Yang held the jade bracelet in her hand, her eyes filled with contemplation. Could her mother, the gentle and kind-hearted empress, truly be involved in this conspiracy? Upon returning to the palace, Fu Kenshin immediately noticed the unusual expression on her face. "What happened?" Lin Yang clenched her fists and spoke in a low voice. "We are not only facing a traitor in the palace, but also a secret that has been buried for many years. And I must uncover the truth." The battle in the shadows had officially begun. At night, Lin Yang sat quietly in her chamber, her gaze fixed on the jade bracelet in her hand. She gently traced its intricate carvings, as if trying to decipher the secrets hidden within. The next morning, she made her way to Sining Palace to meet the Empress Dowager, the only person still alive who had been close to her mother. "You've come to see me, Lin Yang. What is it?" The Empress Dowager sipped her tea, her calm eyes keenly observing Lin Yang's every move. Lin Yang placed the jade bracelet on the table and spoke softly, "Imperial Grandmother, this bracelet. It once belonged to my mother, didn't it?" A flicker of surprise crossed the Empress Dowager's face, but she quickly regained her composure. She picked up the bracelet, studied it for a long moment, and nodded. "Yes, this was the Empress's keepsake from long ago. But I thought it had been lost after her passing. Lin Yang's heart pounded. It resurfaced last night, in the hands of a mysterious figure. He warned me not to investigate the traitor any further. Imperial Grandmother, do you know what my mother was trying to hide? The Empress Dowager set down her teacup, a contemplative look in her eyes. I do not know the whole truth, but before she passed away, the Empress wrote a letter and entrusted it to me. However, one night, the letter was stolen. She lifted her gaze to Lin Yang and spoke slowly. If you want to uncover the truth, you must find out who took that letter. Leaving Sining Palace, Lin Yang immediately summoned YUEN and Fu Canshan. She issued a clear order: investigate everyone who once served in the Empress's palace. Focus especially on those who might have stolen the letter. Fu Canshan nodded, his gaze dark and thoughtful. The traitor from the past may very well be hiding within the imperial court today. If we find him, we will uncover the secret your mother tried to protect. Lin Yang clenched her fists. She knew that the road to the truth would not be easy, but it was the only way to protect herself and those she cared about. The darkness enshrouding the palace was deep, but the light of truth was beginning to emerge. As she stepped out of Sining Palace, Lin Yang's mind was filled with questions. If her mother had truly left behind an important letter, then the one who stole it must have been someone with power and a clear motive. But who was it? And why were there still people trying to keep the truth hidden? That very night, YUEN delivered the first report to Lin Yang. Your Highness, we have gathered a list of those who once served the late Empress. However, something strange has come up. 3 of them mysteriously disappeared shortly after her passing. Lin Yang took the list and scanned through the names quickly. These 3, do we have any leads on them? YUEN nodded. One of them, Eunuch Li, who was a trusted attendant of the Empress, was executed for treason. But strangely, there are no detailed records of the exact crime he committed. The other 2, one vanished without a trace, and the other took his own life. Lin Yang tightened her grip on the list. This is no coincidence. Someone has deliberately erased all traces. The following morning, Lin Yang and Fu Canshan secretly visited the Imperial Medical Institute to meet a final witness, an old imperial physician, who had served in the Empress's palace. Sir, do you remember what happened on the night of the Empress's passing? Lin Yang asked cautiously. The old physician trembled slightly as he took a sip of tea, his eyes filled with fear. Your Highness, I have long feared speaking about it. But there is something I never told anyone. That night, the Empress did not die of illness. There were traces of poison in her body. Lin Yang froze. You mean, my mother was assassinated? The physician nodded, his voice trembling. To be precise, she had been poisoned gradually over time, but on that fateful night, the dosage reached a lethal level. And there was only one person who entered her chambers that night, the same person who had stolen the letter. Lin Yang felt the blood in her veins boil. She had suspected it all along, but hearing the truth was like a dagger piercing her heart. Who had betrayed her mother? And who was the mastermind behind it all? Lin Yang quickly left the Imperial Medical Institute, her anger surging. If her mother had been poisoned, then the culprit must have orchestrated everything well in advance. Moreover, the person who stole the letter was the only one who entered the Empress's chambers that night. What did this mean? Fu Canshan, walking beside her, spoke in a sharp tone. Your Highness, we need to find out who entered the Empress's chambers that night. Once we uncover their identity, we will know who was behind all of this. Lin Yang nodded. YUEN, investigate the records of everyone who was present in my mother's palace that night. I want to know every detail, no matter how small. YUEN bowed and disappeared into the night. 3 days later, he returned with a crucial piece of information. Your Highness, according to the records, on the night of the Empress's passing, a person dressed in purple robes left the palace in secret. But strangely, no one knows who he was, and all records of him vanished shortly after. Lin Yang frowned. Purple robes. Only a few people in the palace had the right to wear that color, either someone of high status or someone with a special identity. Can you trace him? We have searched thoroughly, but all related records have been erased. However, one witness claimed to have seen a shadowy figure near the imperial ancestral temple that night. Lin Yang immediately stood up. Take me there. At the temple, the air was eerily silent. Fu Canshan remained on guard, his hand resting lightly on his sword. Your Highness, be careful. If someone went to such lengths to erase the evidence, they won't let us uncover the truth so easily. Lin Yang nodded and slowly stepped inside. She ran her fingers along the carved pillars, her eyes narrowing at an old wall. This place, it looks like someone has searched it before. Ying swiftly examined the area, and soon found a small piece of fabric caught in a crack, a faded scrap of purple cloth. Your Highness, it seems that person was indeed here. But why would they come to the temple? And why did they disappear after that night? Lin Yang clenched the fabric in her hand. There's only one way to find out. We must locate him before the mastermind makes another move. That night, as Lin Yang pored over old records, she noticed something unusual. In the list of those who had access to the Empress's palace, one name had been crossed out in black ink, Hei Lian. Lin Yang frowned. Hei Lian, why does that name sound familiar? Ying, do you know anything about him? Ying hesitated before replying. Hei Lian was once an imperial guard. But after the Empress passed away, he vanished without a trace. Some rumors say he died, but there was never any evidence. Fu Canshan interjected. If he is alive, then he might be the man in purple we're looking for. And if that's the case, he is the key to this entire mystery. Lin Yang tightened her grip. We must find him before it's too late. The hunt for the truth had only just begun. There was no time to hesitate. Fo Cien rushed forward, his sword gleaming with a cold light. The dark-clad men surrounding them quickly closed in, launching a series of relentless attacks. Lam Yen was not afraid. She drew a short sword from her waist, spun to avoid a slash, and counterattacked, her sharp blade slicing through the enemy's hand. DNH didn't stand still either. He moved like the wind, each precise strike taking down an enemy. But the enemy forces were too numerous. It seemed they had set up an ambush beforehand. Your Highness, we can't stay here long. Fo Cien shouted while fighting. Lam Yen nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. Follow me. She led the way, swiftly moving through the narrow corridor, dodging attacks from behind. Reaching the end of the hallway, she kicked a door open, and the three of them quickly rushed outside. But just as they thought they had escaped, a figure appeared, blocking their way. Under the moonlight, a pair of cold, hawk-like eyes stared directly at them. Lam Yen, you've finally fallen into my hands. Lam Yen recognized that voice. Her heart sank. Lu Ho, is it really you? Lu Ho, once one of the most loyal guards of the royal family, was now standing with the enemy. You've betrayed the royal family, she gritted through her teeth. Lu Ho sneered. I'm just doing what needs to be done. If you know what's good for you, hand over the letter. He reached out toward her. Lam Yen did not step back. Her eyes flashed with determination. Do you think I'll submit so easily? Without further delay, Lu Ho attacked. He was a master, moving with such speed that he was upon Lam Yen in the blink of an eye. Fo Cien quickly stepped in front of her, his sword clashing violently with Lu Ho's weapon, producing a deafening sound. Lam Yen, run! Fo Cien shouted. But how could she run? She gripped the hilt of her sword tightly, and joined the fight alongside Fo Cien. DNH quickly joined the battle, the three of them fighting against one. Lu Ho was unwavering, every move as sharp as a venomous snake. Lam Yen knew that this battle would not be easy. If they didn't escape soon, they would fall into the enemy's hands. Lam Yen quickly backed away, trying to find an opening in Lu Ho's defense. He was strong, but she was no weakling. In an instant, she twisted her body to avoid a sword strike and countered with a slash, but Lu Ho was able to dodge in time. DNH came from behind, his sword aimed straight at Lu Ho's weakness. But just then, another shadow appeared, blocking DNH's strike. "Didn't expect you to still have allies," DNH said in a low voice. The newcomer was dressed in all black, their gaze as sharp as Lu Ho's. "Lu Ho, get the letter and retreat," the figure said. Hsuan Myolie tightened his grip on his sword, realizing the situation was becoming increasingly unfavorable. "Lam Yen, we need to get out of here now." Lam Yen bit her lip. She couldn't afford to lose the letter. But in the current situation, if they kept fighting, they would be exhausted. She quickly signaled to DNH. Understanding the gesture, he immediately launched a swift attack that forced the enemy to temporarily retreat. "Go!" Lam Yen shouted. The three of them quickly retreated toward the palace's secret exit, leaving their pursuers behind. Once they were out of danger, Lam Yen immediately called for a secret meeting in an abandoned temple on the outskirts of the city. "Lu Ho has revealed himself, which means we've touched a nerve," she said seriously. Hsuan Myolie nodded. "He can't be acting alone. There must be a bigger force behind him. We need to find out who is pulling the strings." DNH said in a low voice. "I will investigate Lu Ho and the person with him. There may be a lead." Lam Yen looked at the letter in her hand, determination burning in her eyes. "If my mother left this letter, it must be crucial. I won't let the enemy achieve their goal so easily." Her gaze was as sharp as a blade. A counterattack was about to begin, and this time, she would be the one to take the initiative. That very night, DNH received important news from his network of scouts. "Your Highness, Lu Ho is hiding in a manor on the outskirts, and it seems is waiting for orders from his superior." Lam Yen clenched her fists. "We won't let him act first. Make arrangements, we'll launch the attack tonight." Hsuan Myolie looked at her with concern. "Lam Yen, this is too dangerous. They might have anticipated that we would counterattack." She smiled confidently. "Then let them be wrong." That night, a group of elite assassins was mobilized. Lam Yen, Hsuan Myolie, and DNH led the way, silently approaching the manor where Lu Ho was hiding. Inside the manor, Lu Ho stood in the shadows, his cold eyes watching. "They won't leave us alone. They'll come." The mysterious figure beside him chuckled softly. "Then let's trap them." Lam Yen signaled, and the group of assassins quickly spread out, surrounding the manor. But just as they entered, a series of traps suddenly activated. Fire erupted from all sides, doors slammed shut, and from the darkness, a host of enemies emerged. Lu Ho stood on a high platform, looking down at Lam Yen with a faint smile. "Do you think you can easily capture me? In fact, you are the prey." Lam Yen narrowed her eyes, but did not panic. "Lu Ho, don't be too pleased with yourself. If you can set a trap, so can I." She clapped her hands. Immediately, a series of signals rang out from outside. An elite force suddenly appeared, firing missiles into the manor. The surprise firepower made Lu Ho flinch. "You?" He gritted his teeth. Lam Yen coldly replied, "I didn't come here to be captured. I came here to end it all." The fire blazed brightly in the night sky, the light from the torches casting a cold glow on Lam Yen's face. Her soldiers quickly surrounded the manor, creating a pincer movement that trapped Lu Ho's men, making it hard for them to escape. Hsuan Myolie gave the order, "Don't let anyone escape." DNH plunged into the battle, his sword flashing with deadly light. Lu Ho's guards fell one by one, but the enemy was no pushover. A group of assassins leaped out of the shadows, surrounding Lam Yen. "You want to kill me? Dream on." Lam Yen sneered, swinging her sword in retaliation. She moved quickly, using the terrain to dodge and counterattack with precision. Lu Ho watched from above, his expression growing more serious. "I didn't expect her to be this strong." The mysterious figure beside him said in a low voice, "Lu Ho, retreat now. If you hesitate any longer, your life is forfeit." He gritted his teeth, but couldn't deny the truth. Lu Ho immediately signaled, and a series of flare shots shot into the sky. Soon after, a cavalry unit appeared, charging into Lam Yen's forces to create an escape route for him. "Don't let him escape." Fo Cien Thn roared, chasing right after him. Lu Ho galloped furiously through the dense forest, but behind him, Lam Yen and DNH quickly caught up. The wind howled in her ears, but she hesitated not. A sharp arrow flew through the air toward him. Lu Ho quickly tilted his body, narrowly avoiding it, but his speed slowed down. "This ends here, Lu Ho," Lam Yen shouted, swinging her sword down. He spun around to block the strike, but the force from the blow made him stagger. Lam Yen didn't give him a chance to retaliate, continuously attacking with relentless speed. Finally, she drove her sword into his shoulder, causing Lu Ho to fall from his horse. DNH immediately rushed over, pinning him to the ground. "You've lost, Lu Ho." Lam Yen stared at him, her eyes as cold as ice. Lu Ho chuckled hoarsely, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. "Lost? This game has just begun." Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out from the distance. A group of mysterious soldiers appeared, surrounding them. Lam Yen gritted her teeth, realizing that the enemy still had an ace up their sleeve. Dust and smoke billowed after the explosion, and enemies charged from all directions. Lam Yen and Fo Cien Thn immediately retreated, preparing to fight. But just then, a shadow lunged at them with incredible speed. "Lam Yen! Watch out!" DNH shouted. A sharp sword struck down, and Lam Yen quickly raised her sword to block. The force from the attack pushed her back a few steps. The new opponent wore a black cloak, their face concealed, but their eyes were sharp as a blade. "Who are you?" Lam Yen asked in a low voice. The figure did not answer, instead launching another strike. Fo Cien Thn immediately stepped in to help, but the opponent was unfazed, even more formidable than Lu Ho. Overwhelmed by the enemy, Lam Yen knew this couldn't be a drawn-out battle. "DNH, protect Lu Ho, we need to retreat now." But just then, Lu Ho suddenly laughed, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Do you think you can leave so easily?" At that moment, a series of poison arrows shot down from above. Lam Yen quickly rolled to avoid them, but one grazed her arm, leaving a small wound. "Damn it! We're completely surrounded." Liu Hao suddenly laughed, his eyes filled with malice. "Do you think you can leave so easily?" At that moment, a series of poisoned arrows suddenly shot down from above. Lam Yang quickly flipped over to dodge, but one of the arrows caught her hand, leaving a small wound. "Damn it! We've been surrounded." Fu Centishan gritted his teeth, his eyes cold. Lam Yang looked around and realized the terrain was working against them. In front were the strong opponents dressed in black, behind was Liu Hao's army, and above them were the archers. A dangerous plan flashed through her mind. "Yao Ying, shoot missiles into the sky," she shouted loudly. Yao Ying didn't hesitate, quickly launching 2 missiles into the sky. The red light illuminated the night sky. From a distance, the sound of a horn echoed. Then, an army unexpectedly appeared, attacking Liu Hao's forces. "You have reinforcements." Liu Hao looked on in astonishment. Lam Yang sneered. "Do you think I came here unprepared?" The battle erupted once again. Taking advantage of the chaos, Lam Yang and Fu Centishan quickly retreated, taking Liu Hao along with them. Her secret forces blocked the path of Liu Hao's army, giving them a chance to escape the battlefield. Once they were out of the battlefield, Fu Centishan looked at her with concern. "Lam Yang, your hand is injured." Lam Yang looked at the wound on her hand, blood still flowing. She smiled gently, her tone full of determination. "This is just the beginning. We have the most important thing, Liu Hao. Now it's time to uncover all his secrets." The night sky still loomed over the battlefield, but the light from the torches seemed unable to drive away the darkness of the crimes that surrounded Lam Yang and Yao Ying. The assassins of He Lian continued to emerge from the shadows, their faces covered, but their eyes still radiating ruthlessness. Lam Yang knew that the decisive moment had come. "What are you here for?" Lam Yang asked coldly, looking at the figure standing before her, the leader of He Lian. "I am here to end everything, Lam Yang," the leader of He Lian said in a cold voice. "Your queen, all of you have been deceived. Even Fu Shan cannot protect you." These words made Lam Yang tremble slightly, but she quickly regained her composure. "If you think you can win, you're wrong. I am not someone who can be easily defeated." The leader of He Lian slowly stepped forward, his figure obscured by the shadows. "Lam Yang, you still don't understand, do you?" He chuckled coldly, his voice laced with mockery. "You think you can outsmart us, but it's too late. You've already walked into our trap." Lam Yang's expression remained calm, though the tension in the air was palpable. She glanced at Yao Ying, who was standing by, ready for any command. "Your trap?" Lam Yang's voice was filled with disdain. "You think that just because you've cornered us, you're going to win? You're mistaken. There's still much more to this than you realize." The leader of He Lian's eyes narrowed, sensing the determination in her tone. "You should have learned by now that when you're dealing with us, there's no way out. The moment you decided to defy us, your fate was sealed." Lam Yang smirked. "It seems you're underestimating me, but that's exactly what will lead to your downfall. You've made a fatal mistake. You've underestimated my strength and my ability to plan." Fu Shan stood beside her, his eyes scanning the surroundings. "Lam Yang, what should we do next?" His voice was low but filled with urgency. Lam Yang glanced at him and then at the leader of He Lian. "We fight," she said simply, her gaze steely and unyielding. "But not in the way they expect. We have the advantage of surprise. They don't know everything we have prepared." The leader of He Lian's lips curled into a sly smile. "You think your surprise attacks will work? You've been outmaneuvered already. Look around you." As he spoke, Lam Yang looked around carefully. Despite her outward calm, her mind was racing, analyzing the situation. She knew this was no longer just about escaping. It was about turning the tide of the battle in their favor. "Yao Ying," Lam Yang said, her voice sharp. "Prepare the reinforcements. We need them now." Yao Ying nodded, disappearing into the shadows without a sound. The leader of He Lian raised an eyebrow. "Reinforcements? Do you really think you can turn the tide with a few more people? You're outnumbered and surrounded." Lam Yang didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a step forward, her confidence unwavering. "It's not about numbers, it's about strategy. You've never understood that, and that's why you will fail." At that moment, the ground shook slightly. The sound of marching feet echoed through the night, growing louder with each passing second. From the shadows, a group of soldiers emerged, clad in dark armor and ready for battle. They were the reinforcements Lam Yang had prepared in advance, and their arrival was enough to shift the balance. The leader of He Lian's face darkened. "So this was your plan all along," he muttered, frustration evident in his voice. Lam Yang smiled coldly. "Yes, but this is just the beginning. You'll soon learn that you cannot defeat us. You've underestimated the people you're dealing with." The two sides were now locked in a tense standoff. Lam Yang, with her reinforcements, stood firm, while the leader of He Lian's forces began to close in. The night was filled with the sounds of clashing weapons and the roar of battle. Lam Yang's eyes burned with determination, as she stepped forward once more. "Get ready," she said, her voice steady. "This is our moment to end this." The clash of steel reverberated through the battlefield as Lam Yang led the charge, her determination burning brighter than ever. The night air was thick with the sounds of battle, the clash of swords, the shouts of warriors, and the sharp whistle of arrows cutting through the sky. Despite being outnumbered, Lam Yang and her reinforcements held their ground, each move deliberate and calculated. "Push forward," Lam Yang commanded, her voice unwavering. We cannot afford to lose any ground. Fu Sentishan was at her side, his sword flashing as he cut down an opponent. His eyes were cold, his movements precise, his loyalty to Lam Yang unwavering. Lam Yang, stay close, he shouted as he cleared a path through the enemy forces. Lam Yang nodded sharply, her focus never leaving the leader of He Lian. She knew that this battle wasn't just about winning, it was about sending a message. She had to defeat him, expose his lies, and show the world that no one, no matter how powerful, could defeat her or those she cared for. The leader of He Lian, seeing his forces begin to falter under the pressure, gritted his teeth. He wasn't used to being challenged like this. You think you've won, Lam Yang, he called out, his voice dripping with malice. You're mistaken. I have more forces waiting for you. You can't win. Lam Yang didn't flinch. Then show me, she replied coolly, her grip tightening on her weapon. You've been hiding behind your soldiers for too long. It's time for you to face me directly. The leader of He Lian's face twisted in rage. With a swift motion, he drew a hidden dagger from his belt and lunged forward. Lam Yang sidestepped the attack with ease, her body flowing like water. In a flash, she disarmed him, knocking the dagger from his hand. You're too predictable, Lam Yang said, her voice laced with cold amusement. You rely too much on your underlings, and not enough on your own abilities. You're nothing without them. The leader of He Lian growled, but before he could react, Fu Sentishan was on him, his blade coming down in a swift arc. With a practiced move, he forced the leader to the ground, pinning him there. Lam Yang walked over, her eyes cold as she stood above him. It's over, she said flatly. You've lost. The leader of He Lian sneered up at her, but his defiance was fading. You think I'm the only one pulling the strings? You've only defeated a pawn. There are greater forces at work. You've made an enemy of the wrong people. Lam Yang knelt beside him, her gaze unwavering. I'm not afraid of your threats. I've faced worse. You won't intimidate me. Don't be so sure, he spat, his voice low and dangerous. You've made a dangerous mistake. You'll regret it. Lam Yang's lips curled into a smile, but there was no humor in it. I don't regret anything, she said firmly. And neither will my allies. With that, she stood and turned to her soldiers. Finish this, she ordered. The battle continued for hours, but the tide had already turned. Lam Yang's forces, emboldened by their leader's resolve, fought fiercely. The enemy was no match for them, and soon, the battlefield was littered with fallen soldiers. The leader of He Lian's forces, once so sure of their victory, were now retreating in disarray. As dawn broke, Lam Yang stood on the edge of the battlefield, surveying the carnage. The first light of the day cast a golden glow over the scene, but there was no joy in her heart. The fight was over, but the war was far from won. Fu Sentishan approached, his face grim. Lam Yang, we've won the battle, but you know this is only the beginning. He's right. There are bigger forces at play here. Lam Yang nodded, her expression serious. I know. But we've sent a message. And now, we prepare for the next move. She turned to face the horizon, where the sun was beginning to rise. There was no fear in her eyes, only resolve. She had faced many enemies in her life, and she would face many more. But with her strength, her allies, and her unwavering determination, she would never back down. The battle for the future had only just begun.